Although he wasn't in any serious combat, Sergeant Major Brian Koontz had to navigate through the hazardous roads of Iraq, looking for explosives. His sacrifice of comfort and safety and his hard work allowed for safe patrols for every Army member to come. But, most importantly, it allowed for the safe travels of all the innocent people of Iraq, protecting them from the dangers of Al Qaeda and other terrorists. Sergeant Major Brian G. Koontz was born on November 23rd, 1975, and his place of birth is Johnstown, Pennsylvania. His parents are Lucy and Richard Koontz, and he has 7 siblings, of which he is the youngest. For his education, he and all his siblings went through Catholic school in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. After high school, he took a year off and then decided to pursue a degree in the University of Pittsburgh, also in Johnstown. He had a few jobs prior to his military service. He says,
I was a paper boy for many years. I served as a paper boy for 5 years. People don't know what that is anymore. I think adults do most of the delivery of papers nowadays. But I was a paper boy from 8th grade until actually a year after I graduated high school. I worked at a convenience store night shift. I worked at a record store, which again, they don't exist anymore because everybody downloads their music. And pretty much that's pretty much what I did.
but then he found a job that he truly wanted to do. Kuhn said that he had military influence from his brothers. His oldest brother, Richard, started serving before him. He served for over 30 years as a quartermaster corps. His second oldest brother, Michael, served as a combat engineer. So Koontz wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps and serve in the army. There were also other reasons why he wanted to join the army. He says,
I volunteered. I was at University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, and college was getting tough to pay for. I didn't want to come out with a lot of loans, so my brothers were talking to me about joining the military, and because they had programs that would help you pay for college and give you opportunities later on in life. I think they kind of knew before I knew that I needed a little bit something different, and not coming from a very wealthy family, joining the military would be beneficial to me.
because the military would offer financial relief and the persuasions from his family and friends, he decided to volunteer. After he enlisted, he had to go through basic training. He went to his unit in Johnstown and was driven to Fort Indiantown Gap, which is one of the largest Army National Guard bases in the country. There, he went through pre-basic training and was then flown to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Koontz recalls how gritty basic training was.
There and they tear you down and they build you back up. It's a what we call a total institution, right? They have complete and total control over you. You don't know when you're going to talk to your relatives or loved ones. They wake you up. They tell you when to eat. They tell you when you go to the bathroom. They tell you everything, right?
However, as agonizing as basic training was, Koontz recalled some good parts of training. He thinks that the best part of basic training was when he developed the camaraderie with his fellow soldiers during basic training, and how they joked around as buddies. After basic training, he returned home to the 876th Engineers in Johnstown. He went through drill for 2 months, and everything returned to normal, only doing drills for 2 weeks in the summer. However, that normalcy will change. After 9/11, there was a big change in the military. He recalls,
Had a pretty standard Pennsylvania National Guard service where you served in the Pennsylvania National Guard for, if you were going to stay for 20 years, and you'd be lucky to make specialist or sergeant, right? Sergeant, because people stayed in forever. And that's not the way it worked out because of 9/11. After 9/11 hit, that's when everything started to get ramped up. And I was able to make rank pretty quickly, and I had deployment, and it got really active after that.
following 9/11, Koontz was deployed to Germany in January of 2002, where he was tasked to provide protection to the bases while the active duty units prepared for the invasion of Iraq. However, unlike when he was deployed to Iraq later in 2009, he thought that being in Germany just felt like a 9-to-5 job, and he was able to really explore the country and learn about its history and culture. However, as mentioned earlier, he was then deployed to Iraq in 2009, where he was given the task to participate in route clearance because he was a combat engineer. He explains,
The point with that is when you left for the mission, you took it slow and deliberate to make sure there were no obstacles or IEDs on the road that could hurt any other soldiers. So that was our job, and I was very proud of the job we did.
the nature of route clearance is risky, and he experienced what it really felt like when an explosive went off while he was on duty. He recalls that the IED went off around 100 feet in front of him, but despite the smoke, uncertainty, and shock, everyone knew what to do and quickly sprang into action. He says that what saved the soldier that was hit was that he was inside the vehicle because it had a weapon that didn't require the soldier to operate it. Because of this, he wasn't hit with any shrapnel. Others weren't so lucky. Koontz recalls when he and another platoon were attacked during his first assignment in route clearance.
So
He
we
says,
were attacked the first day, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the other platoons was attacked, which is when that horrible accident happened with one of the soldiers, Sergeant Mall, and one of the other soldiers in the other platoon where he lost his arm and leg. So
despite this, he thinks that he was blessed, as there were no deaths and minimal injuries in his platoon and company. He also says that the reason why that he wasn't impacted mentally while he was there was because he really wasn't in any active fighting. However, Koontz's experience in the Middle East changed him in other ways. He says that he has developed an appreciation of the United States because of how economically and politically stable we had it here compared to the Middle East. People feared for their lives because of Al Qaeda's relentless attacks. He formed a few friendships during his time in the Middle East, one of which is Major Justin Wolfe. They'd been friends since then. However, Koontz says,
you see the movies and you see the friendships, the band of brothers, the friendships. I keep in touch with certain guys from my unit, but it's not the same. We were only together for those short, 12 months that we were there, and then after that, as I said earlier, half my platoon I never saw again, except for maybe drilling a 40-ton gap or something like that. So
after route clearance, he returned home to Pennsylvania, where the community held a huge celebration. He recalls,
the community had a really big celebration when we came back. They had fire trucks lined up with the American flag, and my fiance was there, and my mom was there, and my aunt was there, and all my most of my siblings were there to welcome me home. So that was a great day.
after service in Iraq, he served in the 1067th Transportation Company, where he was in a POL transport unit. There, he was responsible for the transportation of fuel, oil, and lubricants to other units in Pennsylvania. In conclusion, despite not being in active combat, Sergeant Major Brian Koontz ensured the safety of all his soldiers and the soldiers that came after him by sacrificing his safety and using his quick thinking in times of emergency in order to save the lives of his platoon members. His story, along with all the other stories of other veterans who participated in the War on Terror, will be remembered. He and countless others are heroes. Thank you, Mr. Koontz, for your military service.